They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do
Mayan
something that could
school.
make sense.
The cafeteria of the school was crowded with the students who were talking and laughing. The bowls of hot ramen and kimchi were filling the air with a mouth-watering aroma. In the far corner of the cafeteria near the window, you were sitting with your best friends. The first one named Zhao and was sweet and had a flawless Brooklyn skin, and the other named Sia, a sunshine girl who could find something romantic even in a sneeze. Zhao looked at you while slurping her noodles with a giggle. Yeah, Vienna. He looked at you again during math class. You looked around and rolled your eyes. You mean that pain in the neck? The walking red flag? You asked her with a raised eyebrow. You guys mean him? She whispered. You started looking at your friends that how they were exaggerating the topic. Come on, we all know she is talking about Jungkook. You said your cheeks slightly became red, which was noticed by your friends. You let out a deep breath before answering. You said and they both burst out laughing. But just then a shadow loomed behind you. Before you could react, your chair was pulled slightly back. Yeah, you exclaimed, already knowing who it was. You slowly turned your head and a smirk appeared on your lips. There he was, Jungkook, your enemy. His black hair was styled perfectly while his blazer was thrown over one shoulder. The sleeve of his white shirt were rolled up, showing his tattoos. The girls gasped, looking at him. How are you doing? He asked in his dangerously calm voice. You crossed your arms with bored expressions, talk of the devil, and the clown shows up. Locusts escaped the surrounding tables. Zhao was already holding in a scream. They knew you had always been savage girl, but the way you talk to Jungkook, even after knowing that he is not a man himself, this is something makes them shocked and bewildered. On the second bench near the counter, a girl named Dodohee was sitting. She was stylish. Her fingers clenched around her water bottle, the plastic crinkling under her grip. Why her? She muttered under her breath. Standing up slowly, she tossed her silky hair and strutted towards Jungkook with all the confidence. She leaned towards Jungkook, her face sugar coated. Hey, you didn't even say hi to me. Were you too distracted? But Jungkook didn't even look at her. His eyes were fixed on you, only you, though he clenched her hands under the table. Hey JK, I was thinking of trying that new cafe you like. Let's go there after school. She said, but still couldn't get this attention. You were sitting there unbothered. Hey Jungkook, if you are done being yet, then move. You are blocking my sunlight and I can't afford it. Zhao choked on her noodles. Sia slapped the table, whisper screaming, Savage Queen. That mouth of yours, you sure you don't dream of me? Only when I am having nightmares. Then I hope you sleep tight tonight, he whispered. Dodohee jaw dropped, seeing him whispering, JK, come on, let's go. If she's not interested to talk to you, then why are you disturbing yourself? She said, gritting her teeth. Jungkook finally looked at her for a second and then turned back to you, his dark eyes staring into yours. I guess you have plenty of time, Mr. Enemy, but I don't have that much time for sure, so give me some space, you said bit coldly. Letting go the sigh, you looked into his eyes for a moment and then you walked away. Zhao and Sia ran behind you with a grin. Jungkook smiled, running his finger in his hair. Hey JK, if you are done, then let's go. She was speaking out, but he cut her off. Listen, I am not interested, he said loudly and stormed outside the canteen. Leave my in, she said to herself while her nose flaring. After a while, the bell for the second period had just rung. Zhao and Sia had already left, but you needed to fetch out some books from the locker. The corridor was quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of your footsteps echoing on the polished floor. But as you turned the corner near the empty classroom hallway, three girls suddenly appeared from nowhere like witches. In the middle stood Dodohee, flanked by her minions, one holding a strawberry lip tint while other holding a blush on. You looked at them and fake smiled. Dodohee smiled, crossing her hands, tilting her head. You were about to walk when Dodohee smiled. Wow, all alone, she said, only to make you mad. Your face became blank, but it didn't take you a lot of time to answer her back. Oh, you rehearsed that line, or does your brain work that much slow? You asked, raising an eyebrow. The minions gasped slowly, though he stepped forward with a fake chuckle. No matter how much hard you try to act cool, she said and winked at you. You sighed and looked at your nails, pretending to yawn. Wow, you really have nothing else to do in your life. She warned. Her jaw was clenched, but you stood tall and didn't even flinch. But what if I don't? You asked, raising your eyebrow. There was a moment of silence, and then you took a step closer to her, speaking. You said, your lips curled into a playful smile, and then you winked at her. Dodohee and her minions' eyes widened in a shock. You patted her back and then left from there. Dodohee staggered back. One of her minions spoke. Uni, please calm down. Your makeup will be ruined. Uni, your mascara, it's running, she said, pulling out a small pink Barbie mirror from her bag, and then she showed it to her. Dodohee stared at her reflection in the mirror, and a scream left her mouth. Mascara was smudged under her both eyes like she was a ghost. Her lip tint was smeared at the corner of her mouth, and her makeup was ruined. No, my pretty face! She cried more harder. Her minion too pulled out tissues from her bag and handed it to her. She said, trying to wipe off the mascara. Time skipped. You were sitting in the library alone near the window. Sunlight was touching your cheek like a spotlight. You were reading a comics titled My Cold CEO Husband. But outside the library, Dodohee was standing, leaning against the wall like a villain ready to strike. She was wearing an oversized sunglasses indoors like peak Delilu fashion, only to hide the faded mascara scars from her earlier breakdown. Flanking her on either side were Minho and Jack. That girl needs to be put in her place. Just go in. So what? Jack cracked his knuckles. This better be fun. They both nodded, smirking, and then started to walk inside the library room. You were smiling while reading the comics, but all of a sudden you heard an unfamiliar voice. Hey, gorgeous. You looked up to see a tall figure stood in front of you with a playful smile. You gave them a confusing look and then slowly closed your comic and calmly stood up. Aha! I can see the two clowns have escaped the circus again. Minhu raised an eyebrow. Hey, calm down, he said, whispering. Eunice started to flare. You turned around to leave holding your comic in your one hand, but as you walked past Jack, he smiled at you. What's your problem, man? Jungkook asked. They both didn't even wait for a second punch. They scrambled out of the library like puppies in trouble. You smiled lightly and turned to leave, brushing imaginary dust off your arm. I'm not gonna thanks to you, Mr. Enemy, you said in a teasing voice, though your heartbeat was increasing like crazy. Your cheeks flushed, but you masked your face with a smile. No, I don't. You said, twirling the loose strand of your hair behind your ear. It was quiet, no teasing, just silence. You grinned, looking at him. You list the last word, smiling at him, and then you ran out of the library. Jungkook stood there still, then he smiled genuinely, running his hand through his hair. He smiled and walked toward the library, his hand slipping into his pant pocket. Time skipped. The classroom was buzzing with quiet chatter. Students were waiting for the professor, scribbling in notebooks, chatting softly. But you were sitting beside the window, your head was leaning on your hand while your eyes were staring out. Outside, the cherry blossoms were falling, but inside, your heart was beating like crazy. You whispered to yourself while blushing softly. Saw and Sia looked at each other with a frown. What happened to our friend? Is she okay? I mean, I never saw her talking to herself. She asked to Zhao while looking at you concerned. I told you. She whispered to her, and they both giggled, covering their faces. Just then, the classroom door swung open and Jungkook stepped inside, but he was not alone. Right beside him was Dodohee, who was giggling to herself with every step. You looked at them and flinched once, twice, and thrice. Jungkook smiled, looking at you, and then walked over to his seat, which was right beside your desk. But instead of sitting, he leaned back on his desk while Dodohee was standing next to him, twirling her hair. Jungkook whispered something to Dodohee, and she giggled so loudly that classroom became mute. Let's see. He looked at you, his eyes flickering to see your reaction. What is this joke? You murmured to yourself with narrowed eyes. Jungkook eyebrows furrowed, lips pressing into a line. You rolled your eyes and letting out a shaky breath, you pushed the chair away and stormed outside the class without saying a word. Sao and Sia ran after you. This was something Jungkook was not expecting. He was thinking that you would come to him. She looked mad. Jungkook ran his hand in his hair and walked out the classroom. You were standing under the tree and Zhao and Sia, you all saw Jungkook coming towards you. Why Anchi he's coming? I told you he was doing only. She said to you, but instead of responding, you smiled to yourself. There was something else cooking in your mind as you saw him walking towards you in slow motion, like he owned the place, his eyes resting in his pen. The silence fell over the group, gasps exploded from the surrounding crowd like fireworks. Zhao Jia dropped as Sia choked on her breath. The crowd looked at Jungkook, who was now standing right in front of you. You replied while shrugging your shoulders. The crowd started to whisper to each other. Jungkook practically stormed to the parking lot. He opened the passenger door of his black sleek car. He walked around to the driver's seat. Would you like to explain what you were saying, He said, turning towards you, his eyes were burning. The birds on the trees flew away. It is said that a savage queen was admitted to the hospital.